My name is Nickel, Nickel. For those of you guys that remember way back in a video here on the channel called 5 Unsolved Overwatch Mysteries, one of the things we mentioned was the fact that from what we know about Symmetra and what has been said about Symmetra, it seemed pretty straightforward that there was some implication of autism. But that wasn't explicitly confirmed until now. But before we get into that confirmation, we'll take a deeper look at the comic for some of the things that might have suggested this. Starting with the famous sequence where Symmetra is asked by the little girl if she's okay and if she's lost. Because if you look at Symmetra's face, she actually does look kind of lost. Symmetra tells the little girl that she's out of her element, which is probably because she just came out of a crowd, which if you could see in the panel before, she was in the midst of a pretty big one. And during this, she thinks to herself, so much like me at that age, we're going to get that contract, make her life, all their lives better, no matter what it takes. Because the backstory being that Symmetra came from a similar type of poverty, and she wants to use Vishkar's resource to help these people that were in a similar situation to what she was. So her intentions are pretty pure. The very next thing that she thinks is, Sanjay has always said I was different. Everyone has. Asking where I fit on the spectrum. And that was probably the single most direct statement that people refer to when they said that Symmetra may be autistic or have some form of autism. She kind of expands on it by saying, it used to bother me because I knew it was true. It doesn't bother me anymore because I can do things nobody else can do. Which is a positive, productive way of thinking. So a lot of people assumed that meant the autistic spectrum because of that line, and this was one of the parts we talked about in the Unsolved Overwatch Mysteries video, but it wasn't the only thing. There were also other pieces of evidence that helped support the idea before we got any actual direct proof. There was also lots of other people that have pointed out things to suggest this possibility as well. For example, in the comic, Symmetra lets her guard down, which she says is careless and not like her, but rather than killing the men who started firing on her because of this, she uses her energy ball. Sanjay asks her, energy drain, why not terminate them? And she answers, you know I don't kill if I don't have to. I'll be gone before they wake up. So this is yet another situation where Symmetra wants a good outcome. Any other solution to an immediate problem other than hurting people. And so after she says this, she doesn't kill them, she just proceeds to escape. But once she does get outside, she sees that Vishkar destroyed the whole building with the men she just ensnared inside anyway. And she just stares at it confused, saying there were men inside, not understanding why that happened, since she made the choice to spare them because she didn't need to kill them. If you fast forward towards the very end of the comic, which was kind of the resolution to this explosion situation, it's pretty clear that she was tricked into thinking that that was the right thing to do. Possibly Sanjay and Vishkar taking advantage of her and her pure intentions because they were able to via her autism. She asks Sanjay, the fire in the favela, was that part of the plan? Because after the building was destroyed, the favela had to deal with the aftermath of it. And he responded, how can you think such a thing? And yet, that is the price of rebirth and growth, isn't it, Satya? And she's only left to say, yes, of course, before the comic closes out. So it's pretty obvious that she's being misled, thinking that she's making the best decisions possible when obviously that's not what's happening here. Towards the very start, there was also a moment where Symmetra starts walking away from someone in conversation to correct a misaligned painting. And she thinks to herself, this picture is crooked, sloppy, how can she tolerate that? But she doesn't think anything about how it's strange that she walked away from someone while they're having a conversation. There was someone named Tyrone Wizard that wrote an explanation that pretty much summed up a lot of the concepts behind this, which said, before that comic, Symmetra was an evil character who has extraordinary abilities for no obvious reason. With that comic, her character completely shifts and she becomes a hero whose expertise in one specific area and entrapment in a situation that she doesn't understand are neatly explained by her condition. So although that might seem pretty straightforward to most people, it's now actually been directly confirmed by Jeff Kaplan. A guy on Tumblr said, so I wrote a letter to Jeff Kaplan and he responded and confirmed to me that Symmetra has autism. He also sent me magnets and made me feel special. In Jeff's response, he said, Dear Samuel, I'm so glad Overwatch is providing a great way for you and your brother to bond. Nothing warms our hearts more than hearing stories like yours. I'm glad you asked about Symmetra. It was very astute of you to notice that she mentioned the spectrum in our comic. Symmetra is autistic. She is one of our most beloved heroes, and we think she does a great job of representing how awesome someone with autism can be. Thank you so much for taking the time to write to me. I really enjoyed your letter and will share it with the rest of the team. Wishing you and your brother many fun games of Overwatch. Jeffrey Kaplan. So if there was any doubt that wasn't explicitly stated before, because it was only an implication, It's now for real, which is a pretty interesting choice to make because as far as I know, I don't really know any other characters that have autism in video games. I'm sure there's some out there, just none that I'm aware of at the moment. And it seems like this is one example of Overwatch focusing on having each character have a radically different backstory to make them all completely unique. Anyway, let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Based on what you had already read and seen, were you completely sure that Symmetra did have autism or not at all? Let me know down below in the comments. One last thing before I go, if any of you guys want to submit stories for me to talk about in future videos, all you have to do is go to the Underwatch link down below in the description, and once you're there, you can see how to submit news. There's also a place where if you want to have your gameplay featured here on the channel, you can do that there as well. And that's all for today, guys. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a thumbs up. I would appreciate it. And if you haven't checked out some of these other videos on the channel, you can click on them to check them out, whether you're on PC or on mobile. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.